Hi everyone, my name is Paige and you are watching Elevate Filipino TV. It's the place where you want to be to discover possibilities, unlock your potential so you can finally create a life in a business that you love. Joining me today is my dear friend Marian Bacol-Uba. She is a keynote speaker, a business and a speaker coach, and the founder of Thriver Lifestyle. Hi Marian, how are you?
Hi, Paige. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited that you're here because we have an important topic to talk about. We'll be talking about how to create impact, influence, and income through speaking. Now,
Yes.
guys, if you have not heard Marian's talk about on TED Talks, I will definitely link it down below. One thing that I have to tell you, Marian, is I absolutely admire how articulate you were in sharing your story. And I think it's so important that we bring that in today's conversation. So
Mhm.
without further ado, I would love to give you the stage to share with us a little bit about your backstory and your inspiration. Why did you create the Thriver lifestyle?
Yes. And I love that question. And since you did see my TEDx talk, it was really through my own initial transformation, going from a victim survivor into a thriver. And so the backstory behind that is, the viewers here, they're familiar with being in a traditional Filipino household. And from my experience, I can't say for everyone, but from my experience, it was, I love that it's about the unit and family, but oftentimes it can be family over everything, over the individual, even if it's toxic, and that's really what I experienced because growing up, I had this double life. I did very well in school. I was active in everything, class president, honors, all of that. I was even active in the church. I went to Catholic school my whole life. And behind the scenes, my double life was by the time I was 14, drugs and alcohol became my best friend. I started really numbing myself because my reality wasn't good. I wasn't happy with it. I was suicidal because at home, when everything's supposed to be great and happy, I was actually going through a lot of trauma, sexual abuse actually for years from my own father. But I was taught and told to never speak of it again, kind of like shove it under the rug. And I learned to put a smile on and kind of do everything you needed to do. And so in order to cope, I turned to these really toxic habits, which ended up being a part of my life for a really long time. I just got really good at shifting it, right? But being like this chameleon, so I went to a great college, climbed up the corporate ladder, became a marketing director by the time I was 27. If there's a lot of Filipinos who know Seafood City, I was actually marketing director for Seafood City for a bit and for startups. And so everything was going well professionally. I was living in LA. I grew up out there, doing a lot of TV, writing for CBS because I was also in the food blogging scene. And so on the outside, everything looked perfect the way it always was. But inside, I hadn't dealt with a lot of that trauma. I hadn't dealt with a lot of the inner things that we're told to push down. And in 2014, that double life really came crashing down because it wasn't sustainable. I justified my actions with my achievements. I said, I had this great job. I'm doing super well, this title. I'm at the best Hollywood parties. Like everything's okay, right? We try to kid ourselves. But in 2014, I actually overdosed and I nearly died. I actually had a near-death experience. That was my wake-up call. And I knew, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to ever have this chance again. And if I stay in LA with those same habits, who knows? I'm going to end up dead. And so I knew I had to intuitively do something different. So I bought a one-way ticket and I moved to Miami from LA. No job, no friends, no plan. I just had to get away from, whatever it was. And I knew if I didn't take action, sometimes our mind holds us back, the fear, all that stuff, like oh, it's so comfortable here, so I did it. And in Miami, away from everything, I was really able to focus on me, on a lot of things that had kept underneath and hidden. And this was actually the most challenging time in my life because all the things that you suppress, right, comes to bubbling to the surface. In order to heal, you need to. And so I became obsessed about mindset mastery, worked with energy healers, shamans, hypnotherapy, plant medicine, like all the things. Went to all the Tony Robbins stuff. I did all the courses, like all these things to heal. And through that process of healing, I found my voice. I mean, I've always been very vocal, but it was always on the surface, right? I was teaching marketing, teaching all these things. I'd never really shared my story because I was told to suppress that, right? So we have this double life. And I found the courage eventually to write my story, to confront my father and my family, and come out publicly with my story, which was a huge shock to not just everyone, but you know, my worst fear happened basically. You know, you get outcasted, people, you know, from your family say like, how could you do this to us? How could you let everyone, you know, how can you air out the dirty laundry, all these things? And I knew there was something powerful in that. And so organically, I just started sharing my experiences with healing, with all the things I was learning, because I'm like, how come no one is teaching these things? Like, why is this not taught? You know, meditation, breath work, all these things that help us. Why is it not taught openly? Because it could help so many people.
Yeah.
And so my coaching practice initially was as a transformation coach, because I had people DMing me, literally asking like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Like, what's going on? Like, how are you able to talk about all this? I heard so many stories of so many people, especially Filipinos, who had very similar stories to me that had never spoken about it. And so as I helped my clients heal, they realized that they also wanted to share their authentic story, their voice. And circling back, I started coaching them on marketing, the things that I was already professionally what I was doing. And so over the years, I've realized, why keep it separate? You know, it was two separate things. The marketing thing here, like I could actually help people bring my professional skills. And I have over 15 years of marketing experience. I've had my own marketing agency with our authentic stories and speaking. And so now that's really where Thriver Lifestyle, because it's a way of living. It's not like an overnight fix. That's why that became the name of my company. I'm really a business coach and a speaker coach, but a holistic one that talks about both strategy and soul. You know, how can we really market soulfully, have a business that's impact driven, socially conscious, purpose driven, and then use our stories and our voice to share that and to grow our business, you know? And so now that's what it is. It's this holistic, I've been able to not live that double life anymore, but kind of really put it all together, which is beautiful.
I remember that we were having conversations where oftentimes people would segment their life, put it in separate boxes.
Yeah.
But what happens is, you know, you're one person in one area, say you're one person in, I don't know, at work. And then when you come home, you're another different person. So you're living, some people don't even just live double lives, but like multiple lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is you get stuck, like you're not going anywhere with your life. Yeah. And what stood out for me when you were sharing your story is you actually mustered up the strength and the courage to confront your father and your family, you know, and you shared a little bit about, you know, your worst fear of them disowning you. And I know for, you know, like you said, a lot of the times in the Filipino culture, especially, this is something that we don't like to talk about, you know, and I've seen it happen too, where family over everything, you know what I mean? Like, even if it's toxic, like I could relate to that. And for some of our viewers here who might maybe have certain traumas that they went through in childhood and they have that fear, how did you overcome that fear of, you know, your own family basically, you know, disowning you?
Yeah. So I think one is you're always going to have fear. That's nothing. I don't believe in being fearless. I believe in being able to still move forward despite that fear, you know? And so it's really small steps. To share with you, people have all told me, like, how are you able to articulate and tell your story so easily, so well? This wasn't always like that. I actually never in a million years thought I would be so open about sharing my story, because for 21 years I had hidden it. It was a source of shame and guilt for me, you know? And so initially, when I first confronted my father and told my family and friends, I couldn't even speak it without breaking down and crying. So I actually wrote it out first. And then when I initially wrote it out, I didn't think anyone was going to read it. I wrote it for myself to finally get everything out of me that I've been bottling in for so many years. And then little by little, intuitively, you know, from my guides and angels, they were like, okay, share this with this person and this. And each step of the way, I was like, oh my God, no, what if someone's gonna judge me? What if they think differently of me? but I still took that small step, and then another step, and then another step. Like what you see, people tend to compare where they are now. And this is not my quote, I hear it all the time, but you're comparing like your step 1 to someone's step 10, right? Like you have, and I wasn't visible then. No one knew my story because I was still in that step 1. You're seeing me now after years of going through this and crafting it and being able to speak about it. But at one point I couldn't speak without literally breaking down. That's why I had to write it, because I couldn't even get a sentence out without like ugly tears and snot, you know, like all of that, because it was still so emotionally charged. I didn't take my power back then, but now that story empowers me instead of having power over me.
And actually, this reminds me of your post on Instagram. You had this picture of side by side where what you see, like it's this awesome picture of you posting, and there's like captions there, what people see, and they see confident, bold, courageous, you know, and stuff like that. And then what people don't see, you know, past history of drug abuse and alcoholism and abuse. Like people, just like what you said, people often judge their step 1 to someone's step, you know, 10 or whatever. And I love that you really put an emphasis on, this is not an overnight fix. You know, this is a lifestyle, just like how you call your brand. And so when I was getting into personal development, I remember binge watching on TED Talks, you know, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that.
Me too.
But obviously there are certain talks that stick with us, you know, that impact us, that we remember even after many years. And being a speaker coach, you know, and for our viewers here who are interested in sharing their message and having that same impact, could you share with us, what is the framework for having an impactful talk?
Yes. So let's back it up a little bit, because I want to share an unpopular belief I have that I've actually said, and people are like, oh, what are you talking about? I actually say motivational speaking is dead. I don't want to be called a motivational speaker. I'm actually an activational speaker. That's what I actually like to say. Because for me, especially where we are right now in our world, we have so much content. A lot of things can inspire and motivate us, right? We have memes of quotes. We have all these videos of, you know, with the music in the background that make us cry and like invoke that emotion and then inspire us, right? And then what happens? Inspiration can be fleeting. Then you're like, okay, on to the next one, and you forget and you kind of move on with your life, right? And so in order to be, I believe, an impactful speaker that actually like moves people into action, you need to do 3 things. And this is this framework. And this is a framework that anyone can use. And you can actually use this when you create talks. You can use this in an article, a post. This is really powerful. And that's inspire, educate, and then activate. So the first one, inspire, that's where that inspiration is, right? Where you share your personal story, you build that human connection, you know, because that's really what shifts people from someone else. Someone can give the same educational material, but no one is going to deliver it like you. No one is going to talk about it with their own personal experience than you. No one else, right? And so that's what creates the uniqueness of you. That's that inspiration part. And then next, you want to educate. You want to teach something. You want to give something of value. Because if you're just talking about you on stage, you, this is what I did, like, you're going to lose people. And you're just talking about you. You're not being of service and giving value. Because your audience is thinking, I love it. That's great. You went from A to B. Like, now what can I do to be able to do that as well? Like, what can I learn? Yeah. And so when you teach, you actually give value, and you start positioning yourself as an expert, as someone who gives value, as an educator. And then lastly, which is what a lot of people tend to forget, is you want to activate. Now you know my story, you're touched by it. I'm sharing with you, you know, 3 steps, 4 pillars, whatever it is that I've done. Now it's up to you. So you have to do something that activates your audience. You have to give them a call to action so they take that one step that will eventually lead to another and another and another.
I love that.
I always say, like, you have to, you know, crawl before you can stand up, before you can walk, before you can run. So I'm always about these small steps, because when you try to do it too fast, it's not sustainable, and oftentimes you can burn out. And for me, if you want to be a long-term, sustainable, successful, impactful entrepreneur and speaker, you have to be in it for the long game.
I love that you specified, a lot of the times people forget the activation.
Mhm.
And it's so easy to remember, inspire, educate, and activate. And just like what you said, you can do this, guys, you can do this if you write a post, a blog post, a YouTube video, interview series like this. And when you have your keynote speech, I know I've actually interviewed a couple of people here on Elevate Filipino TV where, as I was having conversations with them, I was like, oh my gosh, this can be your keynote speech. Like, this is so awesome. And now with you there, they have a framework, because we were having conversation. Okay, how can I transform this into a keynote speech?
Yeah.
I'm just going to point them to you, Marian.
I'm right here.
I'm super excited. One thing that I love, that I remember from watching your TED Talk, is when you said, we must celebrate our wins, but we also must celebrate our losses. Yes. Because oftentimes those are the opportunities for us to flourish, grow, and thrive.
Yes.
Now, I would like to ask you, what is the most recent thing that you're celebrating?
Most recent thing that I'm celebrating. Oh, you know what? I'll share it here. My highest revenue month. And I love to share this because oftentimes, especially as a woman of color, even Filipino, we're afraid to talk about money and numbers, right? Yeah. And for me, it was, I did over 40K in a month.
Yes.
And I mean, that was something that I used to earn back in the day in a year, right? And to do that in a month is just it's amazing, because I think we should talk about money. I didn't learn about money until years later. So I made a lot of money mistakes. We have a lot of, limiting beliefs about money. But when we realize that it's actually energy, and the more that we have, we can actually redistribute it into, other women of color, causes that you believe in. I'm able to support and pay my team. I'm able to do all these things to help even more people. We start seeing it as a tool, another tool that we can use to do good. It shifts it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always say selling is actually spiritual, because if you stand behind your product, your service, whatever you're selling, and you stand behind it with integrity, and you know that it's going to help someone else, it's your duty to actually help them, or else you're keeping that, you're keeping that from other people, which I think is a disservice, to you and all the future clients that you can help. So that's a big one. And I actually have all my clients celebrate their wins and their money, because, that gets circulated, right? We bring it into this world, and we do so much good with it. So
that is fabulous, girl. I'm so excited. I love that you touched on how a lot of Filipinos have blocks about money. That's a topic that I love talking about. And you say that selling is spiritual. And for me, like, I see it, selling is actually just service, right? It's serving other people. Yeah. And your spirituality is very much in line with serving as well. And so, oh my gosh, I really feel like we're soul sisters.
Yeah.
And you and I have to talk after this conversation.
Visit me in Miami. So.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I would love to. So Marian, I absolutely love that you took the time to sit down with me here and share your story and inspire us to be able to speak our truth, and maybe even level up and get on a stage and share our message to other people. And so as I wrap this up, I would like to ask you, what is your parting message to all of our viewers today?
My parting message is that you are powerful. If you are so powerful and you have the ability to create, to shift, to really build this life and business that you want, and to thrive, and also our ancestors worked so hard and sacrificed so much to give us this opportunity. So let's not waste it, and every day it's a choice to thrive.
I love it. Every day, guys, it's a choice to thrive. So we would love to ask you, what is your breakthrough from this conversation? Definitely share it on social media. Tag me and Marian. Would love to hear it. And once again, guys, if this inspired you, make sure that you share this with your friends and your loved ones, because chances are it's not just going to change your life, but it will also change your friend's life. And our mission here at Elevate Filipino TV is that together we will rise. Together we will shift the culture and be elevated Filipinos. My name is Paige, and this is my dear friend Marian, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.